Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Welcome to the Cornhusker Corner with Blake.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
And Brooks.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
And you better bet your bottom dollar that these two brothers know how to handle business.
Here's a hand up to Thunder, who gives it back to Mike Stokes. He's going to throw it. He's got a man out.
All right, welcome to Cornhusker Corner, where there's no place like
this podcast.
As always, we're your host Blake and my brother
Brooks.
All right, so I think before we get into the nitty gritty and the Husker stuff, I think we really have to have a moment of respect for the pirate. Mike Leach, that dude, for those who haven't heard yet, really, really terrible news. He's no longer with us. He had it was a heart attack, right?
Yeah, had a massive heart attack, supposedly a heart condition that he had been dealing with lately. None of that's confirmed. I don't want to speculate too much, but yeah, he had a massive heart attack and put him in critical condition, and so we had heard about it on Sunday. Yeah. And the whole college football world felt like the world just stopped spinning for a little bit from everybody, because we all saw the news, and as college football fans we're really good at digging up information from every little corner of the internet. So we wanted to respect everybody, but I found myself putting in Mike Leach on the Twitter search bar and refreshing quite a bit, just because, man, as that news started to develop, it just dawned on me. I was just like, man, this is, he was only 61. He had a heck of a career.
I don't think people understand what that, especially people that are, I think we're the youngest generation, like me. I think you are the youngest age range to where would really appreciate what he did for college football and football in general. There are offensive concepts that he created as a coach, right? That now the NFL is employing on a weekly basis, and they weren't doing. The entire air raid system, Mike Leach is one of those people that helped bring the air raid to the mainstream and make it successful. There are people that are still trying to employ the air raid and couldn't be successful. Mike Leach was one of those people that he could take it anywhere and it would just be successful. He was just a great coach, not just for college football, but he was a guy that stood by his laurels, stood by his players. He was a great coach, great person, and
he changed the game.
Football world is
I watched
right now.
I watched Joel Klatt's video yesterday or 2 days ago about it. I almost sent it to you. I forgot to. He summarized it.
I saw it
better than almost anybody else I saw. He basically explained how the air raid was developed, and how really it was developed as a way to compensate, as a way to get your system so watertight that it didn't matter what type of athletes you were working with, what other circumstances came up. You felt like you were going to win your battles one-on-one. And a lot of what it was you would get up into a formation, and every single player would have a read based on the defense, and you could have number of route combinations and possibilities that could spring off of each individual formation and play. And one of the things that he said to Klatt was Klatt goes, hey coach, you've had crazy running numbers this year for a Leach team. Is that something we're going to see going forward? And Mike Leach looks at Joel and he goes, Joel, you know me better than that. Every single play I call is a pass play. If it ends up being a run play, it's because the quarterback checked into that. So he literally just said to Joel, I don't call run plays. It sounds kind of like Mark Whipple, honestly. Mike Leach was a mainstay. Look, we have a college football family, right? We've pretty much grown up watching football, and he's a mainstay year in and year out in the zeitgeist of college football conversation. It seems like every single year there's a new quote, there's a new story, and he changed the game. He changed the game. There's not a whole lot of people that you can say that about, that they changed the game of football. I mean, he came in and when he was really developing that air raid concept in the mid to late 90s, football was completely different than it is today. And like referencing the Joel Klatt video again, and Joel referenced 3 main college proponents of change there, and number 1 being Chip Kelly's offense at Oregon helped usher in that new age. Number 2 was Vince Young, the dual threat ability at Texas, and it got everybody, oh my God, if we have a quarterback that's an athlete, and that changed the game. And then the other big pinnacle, or the other big part of it was Mike Leach and his air raid offense in Texas Tech. And we both remember. I remember I was watching it on the big screen downstairs in our old house in Pennsylvania. Yeah. The one of the greatest, I'll still say, I probably wouldn't put it at number 1, but it's up there. It's one of the greatest college football games of all time. 2008, Texas Tech, Texas at Texas Tech. Dark night in the middle of the West Texas desert. And the great story about the Michael Crabtree, the famous Michael Crabtree play, is that Lincoln Riley was a staffer on that Tech team. And early on in the year, Mike Leach felt like they weren't good enough at their go ball. And so he gets him to practice one day, and he says, well, today we're going to do nothing but run go balls. And so for the whole day in practice, go ball after go ball, every wide receiver streaking down the field 40, 45 yards, go ball. And by the end of the day, they had to have run, 3 or 4 miles of go balls, and some of the coaches were getting concerned, and Mike Leach just looked at him and said, look, we're going to get into a situation where our back's against the wall and we're going to need to make a play, and it's going to be a go ball that we're going to have to make a play with. I want us to be really good at it. And what was the play with Michael Crabtree? 4 verticals, go ball. And he was just a genius. He was a mad genius. Brings a tear to my eye, truly, because he impacted the sport a lot, and a great guy. And you can tell afterwards, you can really tell how much of an impact he had on everybody. I mean, he was never a coach of a team I really rooted for.
No.
You know what I mean? He was never a coach, but I always rooted for him.
Yeah.
This was one of my favorite sort of Mike Leachisms. He was at a press conference, and he's explaining how to do a shuffle pass. It's one of my favorite ones. Let me just show it to y'all.
All right.
Okay, now the trouble is it's got to be your offhand. So you go like this. Look, everybody, I'm passing the ball. And then the last second, and this is key, you turn your thumb down. You just hold the football, turn your thumb, and all you have to do is this. Here, I'll show you.
That's a great way. That's a great place to stop it. Love that guy.
So as far as the people that only listen, he's slowly putting his thumb.
Oh man, he was one of a kind. I never got the opportunity to play college football because I was undersized. I wasn't good enough. But if I had been good enough, you best believe I would have tried to play for the Pirate, because he was a hell of a coach. So rest in peace, Mike Leach. Definitely, yeah. Prayers go out to that whole community and his family.
Yes. Yeah. All right. So we're gonna move on to some Husker news now. I think it's been a while since we've met. Most of our staff is filled out now. We have that to talk about. Transfer portal news. Some guys in, some guys out. Some really, really interesting bowl games. So let's get to it.
Yes, sir. So we have not met on this podcast
since after the Iowa game.
Yeah, since after the Iowa game, since like a couple days after Rule's press conference.
Yeah.
So a couple things have been set in place since then, and I'll put it this way. We got the feeling with Scott Frost almost every offseason. It felt like, besides the attrition of players leaving, it always felt like such positivity. Like, especially this last season. Like, look at all these head coaches that were getting in. Look at all these transfer portal players we're getting in. And I gotta say, my wait and see approach is gonna have to just remain solid until next fall, because I'm encouraged by some decisions that are made, for sure. I am very encouraged. I'm very encouraged by certain players that are being targeted. I'm a little hesitant and too borderline discouraged by other decisions that are made. So let's get into it. The biggest news from this past week is defensive coordinator was hired. Yeah. So he hired a defensive coordinator. It was sort of a bit of a, I mean, we're not, professionals in the industry, so we don't know every coordinator and every position coach, right? So when the name came up, I was like, who's that? And then I looked him up and I was like, Syracuse. And then I looked a little bit more into it and I was like, okay. This guy is from a coaching tree that is highly, highly respected in college coaching. Rocky Long, the Rocky Long coaching tree at South Dakota, at San Diego State. And they are famous. Rocky Long in particular, he has what you would call disciples out there at this point who run things that they developed there, and they developed the defense based on the 3-3-5 base that is very, very multiple. It's a little bit I'm intrigued. Let's just put it that way. I'm intrigued with the whole 3-3-5 thing. I was not encouraged at first, but he was a first-time defensive coordinator last year, and he improved that defense by like 91 spots nationally in ranking. They were like 120 when he came in, and they were borderline top 25 this past year. So basically he did what Bush did. Bush didn't quite do that, but basically he did what Bush did with our team this year, but over the course of 2 years over there. So I'm encouraged with Tony White. Here's the thing that was encouraging to me about it was you look at the South Carolina fans when we hired Marcus Satterfield as our offensive coordinator. Yeah. You look at the South Carolina fans, and they were like, good riddance, you can have him, right? That's kind of the sentiment I got from South Carolina fans. You look at Syracuse fans when we hired Tony White, and they were all, oh no, that's a big hire. Wow, oh no. A lot of a lot of Syracuse fans even wanted Tony White to maybe become the next head coach there. Yeah. So yeah, it's very along the lines of what Matt Rule said when it comes to hiring young, hungry coaches. Yeah. No, I think it's funny that you brought up the whole Satterfield thing, because I did look at that as well, and I was like, really? And I looked at their offensive stat. Like, they didn't have nearly the year they wanted to, but look at some of the teams they beat. Come on. Like, your offense was inconsistent. Not bad. It was inconsistent. Yeah. But look at who they had on quarterback. Mr. Consistency. Mr. Consistency. You're right about that. They had a tough start to the year, and they sort of started coming into their own at the end. And so by the end, the numbers sort of averaged out, and numbers-wise, they were sort of an average to below average offense by the end of the year, when you take it all on average as far as Marcus Satterfield. But as far as Tony White, I mean, look, everything I've heard from people who are in the know about coaches and trees and people's resumes and stuff like that are very impressed with the hire of Tony White. He's gonna be our $1 million to $1 million plus coordinator. He's gonna be one of them. Marcus Satterfield probably being the other one. Yeah. We'll see. You're right. It's funny because the like official Huskers page has been putting up stuff like those little captions whenever they hire a new coach, and I saw it without reading the name, and I was like, did we hire Dave Aranda?
And I was like, oh no, that's not Dave Aranda.
He sort of looks a little bit like Dave Aranda.
Because I was just scrolling on Instagram and I was like, Dave Aranda, what?
Yeah. Bald,
like,
sort of Polynesian looking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see that. I can see that.
No, but no, the more digging I did, especially into what he did at Syracuse. Again, I like consistency. I don't like splash hires, and I don't like coaches that had one good season to be the savior. Again,
Right.
we had that with Scott Frost, and multiple schools make that mistake almost every single year. They have a splash hire. They haven't been consistent, but they had a really great year. Anybody can do it 1 or even 2 years in a row. A good coach has it year after year after year. So time will tell. Right now, it looks like a good hire.
Yep.
In a couple of years from now, we could be sitting here and going like, that was terrible.
So the other day on the radio, Trev Alberts was on the radio, and he sort of had a really good quote, I thought, on this very topic. So let's check it out. Let's check her out.
Like, they understand how to build a competitive team. And of course we want to have fast guys. Of course we'd love to throw 70-yard bombs at the end of the day. And these were the kinds of things that Coach Rule and I were talking about throughout the process. But, just like I remember, we went down to L.A. and we played UCLA, and Tommy Frazier, who we talked about earlier, was our quarterback. Certainly wasn't all his fault, but there's days where the offense has an off day. There's just like in basketball, there's a day where the shots aren't going down. Mm-hmm. Well, what can you control? You can control your defense, you can control your rebounding, you can control your effort. That was a similar deal for us. There's going to be days where you turn the ball over. I think that game against UCLA in '93, we had 4 turnovers. We just didn't play that well. But you can always play great defense. You can always be physical at the line of scrimmage. And so football has changed, and you got to be more multiple. A lot has been made about a 3-3-5 defense. Look, part of that defense is it's adaptable, and you can have 4 or 5 guys in the line if you need to. And it's hard to, you can disguise who are these players. That was the hardest thing when I would do broadcasting in Rocky Long's defenses is you create your board and you're trying to call a game, right? Well, the hardest part about the 3-3-5 defense is you never knew who was actually in what role. And that's the benefit of that defense as you go to the offense. Quarterbacks come to the line of scrimmage, and the offensive line is identifying who is the Mike linebacker. Well, if it's interchangeable and adaptable, it gives you a chance to create some chaos and havoc. So what I'm most convinced of and comforted by, now we'll have to see how it goes, but what I think Coach Rule believes in is building from the inside out, controlling the line of scrimmage and being physical, and then integrating those other types of things like speed and those kinds of things. We're going to be multiple. He's going to be multiple. We're going to, we're not going to run an offense from the 50s, but at the same time, the core fundamentals and principles of good football must be there, and we need to start there.
Appreciate the phone call, Nebraska.
Yeah, so I understand what he's saying about the 3-3-5 defense, and I understand, I think a little bit more than the average football fan about just the quarterback position and nature and just offense, but look at the Big Ten, and this is what just makes me scared about it. The Big Ten isn't a scheme conference. It's a line your guys up, smash each other. The biggest guys, the strongest guys, and the people with the most will, those are the ones that are going to win. And that's the Big Ten football. So that's what makes me a little
yeah.
Like, there's scheme in that. There definitely is scheme in that. But,
my one thing that I saw pointed out about the 3-3-5 in general was in the 2021 season, when we had JoJo as our nickel. And we had a lot of success actually out of that base, out of that 3-3-5 base with JoJo as that roving nickel. And that's pretty much the exact package that Tony White uses. He's called the nickel something different everywhere. At New Mexico it was the Lobo. He's called it different. I wonder what he's going to call this one. But yeah, it's been successful in the Big Ten. And like Trev said, the idea that we run a 4-3 and that's our base and we're just going to run everything out of that, or we run a 3-4 or anything, it's sort of antiquated with the way that offenses play these days, you have to be multiple. You have to be running all fronts.
See, the thing is, I understand that, and I think one of the reasons Nebraska did that is because they didn't have the guys in every single position that could beat your guy, and we're gonna be fine. If you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So right now they're trying to build a team, not just for next year. They're trying to build a team that will carry over from year after year after year. And I just kind of look at that mindset as, yeah, it works. But if are we just looking to like be successful in a year or 2 years? Or are we trying to just build this is our scheme? Do we know this works? Even if we don't have the guys to do it, guess what? They're going to get experience if they're young, and they're going to be great in 2 years. Is that what we're trying to do? So that's kind of my mindset,
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not reading into any one move, because here's the reality. Like, let's say Matt Rule goes 0-12 next year, just theoretically. He's not getting fired. I mean, we're not going to go a new direction. He's got pretty much 2 years to get to bowl eligibility without being on the hot seat, I'd say. He's got to get to a bowl in the next 1 or 2 years. And if he wants to avoid being in year 2, he'd have to get bowl eligibility if he wants to not be on the hot seat.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. That is the baseline standard. Me personally, I'm not on the hot seat with him as much if he does, or he's on the hot seat in my mind if we don't get to a bowl next year, because we need to win, man. It's time. And there's coaches out there that I believe Nebraska could have gotten that would have positioned them in this 2022 world of NIL and an image and marketing and all that. There's coaches out there that I believe could win instantly here. And I actually think that's a good segue into another big piece of news that happened while we were off, is that Deion Sanders got hired at Colorado, which the Huskers play in I think it's week 1 and we play week 0. I think it's that same type of thing.
We do play week 0.
Yeah. I think it's our second game.
It's our second game, yeah.
Yeah, it's our second game.
Yeah, so basically we have what Northwestern had this year, and instead of just playing 3 weeks in a row.
Right.
So we have the week 0 game, rest, and then Colorado.
Well, he has been very eventful since he got hired there, and
to say the least.
To say the least, look, this offseason is going to be the offseason of Prime, and everybody's going to be talking about it until he's coaching a team on the football field, and we see a product on the field. He's going to be in the limelight. And very first day he got hired, he spoke to his team, and I'll go ahead and play a clip from that, because it just needs to be seen.
Yeah,
it needs to be seen.
Well, seen / heard.
/heard. If you're listening, shout out. If you're listening, you're gonna be able to hear it. There's nothing. Let me see what Prime. Hang on, I have the exact. Here it is. Yeah.
Coming to restore, to replace, to re-energize. Some of y'all that are salvageable. I'm not gonna lie. Everybody that's sitting there in the seat ain't gonna have a seat when we get back. But I'm coming. I started, and we're gonna go dominate, and we're gonna work. I'm coming to work and not to play. I'm coming to kill it and not to kick it. I'm coming. So you gotta understand, so when I get back, there ain't gonna be no hats, no meetings, there ain't gonna be no hoodies on and no meetings, there ain't gonna be no phones. I wish you would bring a phone in my meeting. There ain't gonna be no earrings in the meeting. Everybody's gonna look like everybody. I'm coming. It's gonna be a different place, a different feel, a different attitude, a different energy, a different work ethic, a different want, a different hunger, a different desire, a different need, a different capacity. It's gonna be a different reach. I'm coming. See, by now you gotta feel it. You can feel what I'm saying. You can feel where I'm coming from. And you know I ain't playing because I got the credentials to back it up. I'm coming. And you're gonna hear me. Because it's gonna be little solid little footsteps that you don't even have to strain. But you're gonna know I'm coming. Just the second my voice, the commitment to excellence, that there's not gonna be any more mediocrity, period. I'm coming. Some of y'all that really got it, that really want it, and really deserve it, and you gotta play beside a fool that don't want it, don't deserve it, they don't even love it. I promise you, it's my job to get rid of it. Okay. I love everything about this institution. I mean, the academics prevalence, no crime, beautiful city, beautiful stadium. We've never had nothing of sort to work out in, to trade in. Our kids would go absolutely crazy to be in this situation that you're in. But you don't respect it. Okay. You don't want it. Okay. Some of y'all don't even think you deserve it. Okay. And usually when God sends me to a place, he sends me to a place to be a conduit of change. Okay. Uniforms may not even look like they look now. Okay. The cleats, I guarantee you it's gonna be some special. Okay. We got a few positions already taken care of because I'm bringing my luggage with me. And it's Louis.
I mean, it's really funny. Okay, so in a PC world that we're supposed to live in, like now, like college football coaches especially have toned down that kind of rhetoric. You know what I mean? Coach Prime doesn't care about that. Now he does not. I respect what he's saying. Like, yeah, like I took over. I know what it means to be successful. Guess what? Some of you don't have it. And the guys that don't want to work for it, go away because I'm coming and you're not going to be here anymore.
Yep.
And if you are still here, I'm going to make sure that you're not. So
it's sort of an interesting case, going to be an interesting case study going into that second game because you look at Matt Rule and you look at Coach Prime and they're taking almost the complete opposite approaches with the way they're choosing to go about this rebuild. I mean, what was there's no video of it, but by all accounts, what was Matt Rule's message to his team when he went in? Matt Rule's message was, you didn't ask for me to coach you, but I want to be here to coach you. I came here to coach you. And which, think about that. That's like the opposite of Prime.
It is. But also, look at the two different teams that they inherited. Matt Rule inherited a much, much better situation than Coach Prime did.
Yes.
Just in terms of talent. So
100%.
He went into that room. Anybody that watched Husker football, all right, you could tell every single team this year that we played, sans maybe Michigan and probably Minnesota, we were probably more athletically talented than them, but we didn't win. Why is that? That's coaching. So you could see that. You could see it on the field, right? So that's what Rule saw. That's what Rule knew, and he knew that those were tangibles, and he went, okay, I'm not going to keep all of these players, but I need to keep as many of them as I can because I think I can really win. I could even win with this team that they have right now. Prime, you can look at Colorado. I saw them play once, and they were very miserable.
Oh yeah, I saw them play too early in the year.
Oh, and they
only had one quarterback in that quarterback room that I would keep. If you watch football, number 5 on Colorado, he never played. He was like their backup quarterback. They kept just putting him in weird situations. But the dude has a freaking cannon. I don't know why he wasn't on the field more. It was weird. Anyway, the other thing about Prime to Colorado is guess what happened this week? Malachi Coleman, who was the top commit in Nebraska's 2023 recruiting class, committed to the old staff. And specifically, it seemed like he was even more committed with Mickey Joseph. That news has been beaten to death. And the whole Mickey thing, we all know about that. We're not even going to cover it. It's not our place. But he decommitted to Nebraska, went on an official visit to Nebraska to meet the new staff, met the new staff. The word was that he was going to be taking an official visit to Michigan. And then 2 days ago, he made the announcement on his Twitter that he was going to be foregoing his visit to Michigan to go visit Coach Prime in Colorado. So that's where he's going to be this weekend. If Coach Prime, let me give you an idea. Colorado is sitting around 60 in their recruiting class right now. If Malachi commits to Colorado, they'll move up 10 to 15 spots on that alone. So that's what kind of player that Malachi is. That's how highly he's rated. So crossing our fingers, but man, Prime going to Colorado just makes me a little bit more nervous for next year, and just a little bit more nervous for Nebraska's place in the in the in college football.
I know, especially since I think we both talked about this too. New coach. I think Matt Rule is a decent coach. Whether he can get it on the train on the rails right away, has yet to be seen, and we're gonna wait and see. But guess what? We play Minnesota, first game of the season.
First game.
And first game is a conference game. I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
I like having those few buffer games before you have those really games that matter, because guess what? Everybody gets better throughout the season, or you should. Well, coach teams do. But
yeah, you hate it unless you're Northwestern. If you're Northwestern, you look back at this year and you say we were first in the Big Ten for like 3 weeks.
Okay, yeah, true. But like that's not the goal, right?
Right.
So then you have Minnesota, and then you have a Coach Prime coached Colorado team. Who knows how good they're going to be, how well he can do it, even if, like, with the success he had at Jackson State, even if that does transfer, to a bigger school.
Coach Prime is bigger than life. Like, you watch that video that we just showed, and it just is so apparent. The first thing that comes to mind when I look at that video, ironically, I'm an MMA fan, but it's Conor McGregor. Like, the rise of Conor McGregor, how just magnanimous he was, how magnanimous he was, how Conor McGregor is not a football coach, but Coach Prime has that sort of personality that, like, you have to watch him. Like, you can't look away from what's going on. And I got to give props to Colorado. We'll see how it works out, but man, they took the chance that seemingly nobody else above their level was willing to take. And I think it's going to work out. We'll see if it does or if it doesn't. But unfortunately, I can't root for them because, like we talked about, we're playing them in week 2. But we all love Prime. Prime's one of the greatest football players of all time. Straight up football players, one of the greatest football players of all time. And his rise in coaching has been just fascinating. And I've already talked about it, but I even have a little story of playing against his team when I was in high school. So that's kind of cool for me to look back at it and be like, damn, now he could be going on the path of being quite a legendary coach as well. So it's going to be fun to watch regardless.
Yeah, could be. And he's bringing his baggage with him, which is
and it's Louis, Louis. That is such a good line, man. He just has a line for everything, Anyway, so a lot of Nebraska news with the transfer portal. Let's talk on the negative first. So we have some players out. I'll just go through the list, and then we can revisit some of the more important names. So DeColdis Crawford transferred. Brant Banks transferred. Ernest Hausman transferred, landed at Michigan today. Brendan Franke transferred. Jaden Gold transferred, landed at Syracuse the other day. Alex Kahn, who I didn't even know who he was, but he was a lineman. No offense, Alex Kahn, but he transferred. Marquise Black, Jalen Weaver, D lineman. Jamari Butler entered the transfer portal and then transferred back to Nebraska. That's the way I call it. So we got a transfer. And then Jaquez Yant transferred, and then offensive lineman Kevin Williams Jr. transferred. He's going to have to go for an injury waiver anyway, so it's sort of a bit of a moot point. He's trying to find playing time somewhere. The one I want to touch on most of all is Ernest Hausman. Ernest Hausman transferred. I was holding out hope over the course of these last 2 weeks or so since he made the announcement that he would come back, but dude had a really strong connection with Coach Rude. He also has like 2 brothers on the team, 2 or 3 brothers on the team. There's a couple of Hausmans on the team, and they're all brothers or cousins or something. They're related. So I thought that might help, but the talk was that he was going to be transferring to Iowa, which admittedly would have been worse because we both know how good of a player he is. He's going to do well for Michigan. Michigan just got themselves a really, really good player. But man, what a blow. What a blow. I mean, we have the potential of Luke Reimer and Heinrich to come back. Those dudes are still on the team. So maybe he looked at that and didn't see as much playing time for him, or maybe he just wanted to go to a winning program. I mean, at the end of the day. So that's Hausman. And then Jaden Gold it didn't really touch the mainstream news cycle as much, but I think that's a pretty big loss too. I mean, looking at his film and just looking at the athleticism that kid brought to the table, it's just sort of interesting. We hired Syracuse's defensive coordinator And then a day later, one of our more promising young defenders transfers to Syracuse.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a trade.
Yeah, no, I did find that interesting that he went to Syracuse, but we got the defensive coordinator. So I was like,
yeah. Yeah. He gets there and he's like, oh, all right, where's Coach White? And they're like, oh, he got hired at Nebraska. He's like, what? No. So we lost a couple. The biggest impacts on this list that I see are Hausman, Jaden Gold. Yeah, that's pretty much Brant Banks. That's a decent one. Yeah. O-line depth is very valuable.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the players that are on their way out or who have already found destinations. So we have a couple players who are, quote, in, as the social media Nebraska people like to say. And so we got a 5-star out of Florida. Hell yeah, baby. 5-star out of Florida. Marco Ortiz, the best long snapper in the nation. No offense, Marco Ortiz. I would have loved to have been a long snapper in college as well. But he's a good long snapper. He supposedly decided that he wanted to become a long snapper just because he wanted to play major college football. And then by the time he got to that level, he was like, I'm bigger than I thought I would be. And so supposedly he's a pretty good long snapper. But we got a long snapper. Junior college defensive end Kai Wallen, he's a 3-star. And then in 3-star edge out of Nebraska, Jamari Butler. So we're making moves. So some interesting perspective players that have either visited Nebraska this past weekend or are set to visit Nebraska this next weekend. Cornerback Corey Collier Jr., a 4-star out of University of Florida, as well as Chief Borders, a 4-star linebacker out of the University of Florida. Chief Borders, the 4-star linebacker to the University of Florida, is 6'5", 240.
what?
Yeah. I had to write that down as soon as I found that out. 6'5", 240, 4-star out of University of Florida. Marshawn Lloyd, 5-star running back from South Carolina. Ben Scott, 3-star offensive lineman from Arizona State. He was a Rayola connection and visited this past week. That's feeling like a good connection as well. This week we also have 4-star QB Malik Hornsby visiting. He's from Arkansas. He's taking a visit this weekend. He has a connection with Rule since Baylor. He's a 6'2" quarterback from Missouri City, which is in the Houston area. He's the number 8 dual threat quarterback in the class of 2020. I watched his film. He's very fast, smooth runner, sort of like Trey Palmer, honestly. But he was the fastest player on the team, supposedly, in Arkansas. So his passing is okay. That's the thing about him. He's a developmental passer. And then us on the other quarterback on the quarterback front is Jeff Sims from Georgia Tech. He was their starting quarterback last year. He visited this past weekend. He's a really good athlete as well, but he's a 50% career passer with a touchdown to interception ratio that hovers around 50% as well. Yeah, it's the most. So I got through all those quickly because who knows? But the most interesting one to me. And hopefully it's feeling like a reach at this point because of how many teams are interested in this guy. But the number one offensive tackle in the portal, the number one offensive tackle in the portal, Johnny Cornelius. He visited last weekend. He's big. He's athletic. Rhode Island is where he comes from. That's seems to be a trend in college football where a lot of these developmental linemen will come out of a very small school, like that guard that Michigan picked up last year, things like that. Anyway, so there's the more intriguing thing about that list that I just went through is the O linemen. There's decently rated O linemen, Ben Scott and Johnny Cornelius. Where if we land those dudes, those are. Let me put it in perspective to you. That's like double the impact of what the 2 transfer portal O-linemen we got last year would have been. So Hunter Anthony and Kevin Williams, no disrespect to those guys, but they weren't impact transfer portal additions. They just added depth for you, really. But this Johnny Cornelius guy, his His stats are insane. He's only ever given up 1 sack at the college level. He would be a starter from day one. So that would be a huge addition. But as he's hit the portal and as his offers have gone out, he now has Ohio State on the line. He's got the big boys on the line. Yeah. So we'll see where that goes. Yeah. So transfer portal's heating up, man, and it's gonna get interesting. Not so much movement. Not so much movement as far as right now. I mean, there's movement. Nothing definitive though. Nothing crazy definitive. So we'll see. Nothing to really drink the Kool-Aid on yet, I would say, unless a long snapper does it for you.
Yeah, I mean, it might for some people. I mean, a good long snapper is hard to find.
Yes, it is.
But no, yeah. So movement, like both ways. I think we're still in the negative in terms of losing and winning. But guess
we've
what?
lost 16 players. Yep.
Yeah. The transfer season is young. There still are a lot of teams yet to play bowl games. There's still a lot of teams yet to complete their season. So, and
there's a lot of players on our roster that we don't know what they're going to do yet. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of big names on this Nebraska roster who we're waiting for news on, essentially Garrett Nelson being one of them. The scuttlebutt on him is he's not going to go to the NFL. He's not ready for that yet. And I think he even knows that. But the scuttlebutt on him was he's thinking about transferring to a school out west. Now, I haven't heard any specifics on that or anything like that, but look for an announcement on Garrett Nelson either way, whether he's going to stay or whether he's going to enter the transfer portal. And Casey Thompson is the other big one, obviously. Still haven't heard news on him. He's the type of guy that he'll probably wait until Christmas is over to give that announcement at the very least.
Yeah.
And you know what? We were talking about Mike Leach earlier. I mean, Mike Leach had a quarterback under him that he brought into his office one day, and he said, son, you just don't have the physical tools to get this done, but you're one of the best football minds that I've ever met. Would you want an assistant position? And the guy, the quarterback, went out of the office all mad, and then he came back the next day and accepted the job because he knew Mike Leach was right. And who was that? That was Lincoln Riley. And so it's like, I'm not saying that Casey doesn't have the tools and that he can't potentially be a practice squad quarterback on some NFL team somewhere.
Yeah,
but like he's got a really good football mind.
So what you're saying is Matt Rule needs to hire him as the quarterback coach.
No. But what I am
we
saying,
don't have one of those yet.
No, but what I'm saying is both you and I know Casey Thompson's a very smart guy. He's very cerebral. He's very articulate, and he's very even keel. A very even keel guy. He's not going to get too emotional either way. All of those qualities that I just described are qualities of a good coach. I'm not trying to demean Casey Thompson. This is a compliment. But yeah, I think he'd be a hell of a coach. I really do. That's the path he should take, in my opinion. He should play one more year, please, and then maybe pursue the coaching profession. Yeah. So that's transfer portal. Real quick, I just want to go over some recruiting stuff because that's different. We know how it is these days. You got your transfer portal and you got your recruiting. Yeah. I'm not going to
did all the research for this podcast, by the way.
Yes. Well, got all these damn names. There's a lot. So we got 2 commits. His first commit was Bryce Turner, who is an undersized wide receiver who didn't really get any looks out of high school, but he runs a 10.2 100 meter, which is insane. He was already getting recruited by a lot of schools, including Nebraska, for track. And Coach Rule basically saw, he plays football. I like speed. Let's get this guy a shot. And that's kind of what he's shown throughout his career is he likes to pick up guys with a lot of speed and develop them into high caliber players. He has a history of that. So he got re-ranked as a 3-star after we offered him and he committed. So that was his first commit. And then his second commit was Sincere Safiola. That's what his name is.
Yeah.
Cornerback, a 3-star cornerback out of IMG Academy.
Out of a junior college, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, IMG is a prep school, basically.
Prep school.
It's like a sports prep school.
I thought we got it like Never mind. Go ahead. Keep green.
Yeah, it's like a football factory, high school.
No,
football
I know what
factory.
IMG is. Yeah, I know what IMG is. Go. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was his first commitment. That's pretty encouraging. Nikhil Bertrand, 4-star offensive lineman from Philly. Coach Rule seems to be hitting the Philly area generally pretty hard.
Makes sense.
He's a 4-star offensive lineman. He would be a flip because he's currently committed to Texas A&M, so that's something to look out for as well. Another thing is that this year, the transfer portal essentially closes December 23rd if you want to get into classes for the spring semester. So you could transfer after. You're just going to have to enroll later. It's just just look for a lot more movement going on before December 23rd.
That's the deadline to enter or confirm that you're moving.
I believe that's the deadline. I mean, I heard this is the exact words from Sean Callahan. December 23rd is the deadline if you want to get into classes for the spring semester. So I'm assuming that means you need to be enrolled at the school. Yeah, and committed, and they need to start enrolling you at the school.
Yeah.
Couple of things real quick as we sort of sign off here. We'll talk lots of coaching changes just generally. Prime to Colorado, of course, we already talked about. But supposedly the Prime to Colorado news halted Pac-12 TV deal talks. So they were like, wait, we can leverage more money with Prime. Anyway, Jeff Brom got hired at Louisville, so Purdue lost their coach. Yeah,
crazy. I can't believe that happened, actually, because Brom was back at his alma mater, right? He went to Purdue, and he was doing well. They just were coming off a really good season. I just don't understand it, man. I don't understand it.
It's a hell of a hire for Louisville.
Oh, no, it's a banger hire. I think that he's going to do well there. He's a great coach. Big Ten is a different animal, especially with the term like kind of football he coaches, and he was still successful. That shows you how good of a coach he is. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like he never won like a Big Ten championship or anything, but that's very hard to do with Ohio State, Michigan in the same or in Penn State, really, if you're trying to beat them over the past decade. So,
but Brom's a great coach. I mean, he's a bit of a offensive genius, mad mind in his own right. And you know, we talked about that in the preview and the recap of the Purdue game this year. But he's a hell of a coach. They figured out how to survive in the Big Ten West with, I don't want to say Scott Frost's system, but a lot of similar philosophies. I'll say. So he's a hell of a coach, and I think he's probably an even better program fit at Louisville than he is at Purdue, just because of their position in college football. So Brom went to Louisville. So who did Purdue hire? Purdue hires Ryan Walters, defensive coordinator at Illinois. So the sentiment I heard from a lot of people about this hire is fickle to Wisconsin. Sorry. I had a bubble in my throat.
Yeah, I know.
It's what happens. It's what happens. I'm drinking the Mexican cola while we're going. So fickle to Wisconsin, Rule to Nebraska. You know, you look at last year, Lincoln Riley to USC. All these crazy hires of teams that are eventually going to be in the Big Ten, and then Purdue hires Ryan Walters, defensive coordinator, and Ryan Walters is a good coach. I mean, he should have been a Broyles Award winner this year if he wasn't already. I'm not sure if he was. I know he was nominated. But generally, Purdue's history is they've always hired coaches like Brom, coaches that are sort of wacky, offensive-minded coaches, and that's kind of the opposite of what they chose to do in this hire. So we'll see how that works out. But needless to say, I won't be mad if we got one more cupcake W on our schedule, so we'll see.
Yeah.
So Ryan Walters to Purdue, Hugh Freeze to Auburn, your alma mater's old coach.
Yeah,
he goes to Auburn.
It's funny because last year they tried to shore up his contract and they gave him a big extension, and Liberty has a good amount of money.
Oh, they do, yeah.
But they don't
and
have
it's a beautiful
SEC
school,
money.
too. It's a beautiful campus. They're in the mountains and stuff. It's nice.
And right now they're not a part of a conference. They're still independent. So they're still trying to find their way into a conference. So that's really the big bugaboo right now.
Yeah, they have money, but they don't really have enough money to exist as an independent school like Notre Dame. I mean, like Notre Dame is just so historical. They can do it, man. They have the relationships with schools like USC and Michigan and those schools to play them every year. You know.
Yeah, but also the college football's changing, and there aren't going to be any more independent schools. So
yeah, probably true. You're probably right about that.
It really isn't.
So Auburn gets their coach, and then Coastal's coach Jamie Chadwell gets hired by Liberty.
Which not a lot of people know this, but because I went to Liberty, and I was there before both Liberty and Coastal made the jump into real D1. So they were the division down. They were in FCS, right? So they were in FCS, and we played each other every year, all right? So that was the rivalry.
Big rivalry,
all right?
Yep.
Yeah, big rivalry. It was, every time it was like beat Coastal. It was all year. We could be losers all year, just beat Coastal. So that was the thing. So I think it was really funny that we just hired their coach, because in terms of, like we just mentioned, money, we have so much more money than Coastal. It's not even funny. And he's a good coach.
Yeah, you like that hire? Do you like the hire, Jamie Chadwell?
I do.
Yeah?
I think he's a great coach.
You think it's a good program fit?
Yeah.
He runs that spread option, right?
Mm-hmm.
You think he's going to run it there?
Yeah. I mean, if
probably.
That's what he's successful
Assuming.
with,
yeah, probably. Okay, so Coastal's coach Jamie Chadwell gets hired at Liberty, and then our old friend Tim Beck. Our old friend Tim Beck is now hired at Coastal, and he's now Coastal's head coach. So we, of course, being Nebraska fans, we have a history with Tim Beck in that $1 million smile. If you know, you know. And and he was our offensive coordinator the last 3 years. Yeah, yes. The last 3 years of Bo at Nebraska. And he wasn't bad. He wasn't great. Didn't have the best tools to work with, but he wasn't bad. And then he went to Ohio State and was working with them. And he's had a good history. And now here he is a head coach. So congratulations to Tim Beck. Yeah, good for him. And then the very last thing I want to talk about.
Is it Adrian's playing Alabama or?
Well, we could talk about that. But how about we talk about real quick that there are 2 Big Ten teams in the college football playoff. That's new since last time. 2 Big Ten teams in the college football playoff, which is something that, especially towards the end of the year, both you and I sort of said that is starting to look like more of a possibility. And so we got Michigan versus TCU. And we got Ohio State versus Georgia. And
I think the biggest part of that is I'm okay with the Final Four. If anything, I mean TCU is going to get steamrolled. I think they're just a different type of team. It's a different type of conference. I don't think they're a bad team, but they don't run into defenses like they're about to see. You know?
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm really proud of the committee, at least for not putting, like they did last year with like putting Alabama versus Cincinnati and like that whole thing, right? I'm glad that they gave the opportunity for the game to possibly be the game.
Yeah, you know? I'm proud of the committee. I'm not. Let me tell you what I'm not proud of. I'm not proud of Fox. I'm not proud of Fox at all, because Fox hosted the Big Ten championship game, and halftime of the Big Ten championship game, what do? They have Nick Saban on, who coached Alabama, legend. We honestly like Nick Saban a lot, and he's just doing what he needs to do. He's basically politicking for his team, but that's what he was doing. They brought him on to politic in front of the country for his team. Oh, we're 10-2, but who would be favored? That was one of the arguments he made. Who would be favored if we played some of these playoff teams today? Who would be favored? Well, coach. Like, Vegas isn't the committee. Like what are we talking? You're Alabama. Like, you're going to get the benefit of Vegas, like, in almost every game. Like, doesn't really matter who you play. But, matter of fact, I bet the line between Alabama and Georgia would be closer than the line between Ohio State and Georgia. I bet. Yeah. I'm willing to bet. But anyway, I just thought that was hilarious, seeing Nick Saban barter at halftime.
Them in 5 when there are 1-loss teams behind them. I just look at it from optics, right?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
That's not how you're supposed to rank. You're not well, but they're Alabama, so that's where they should be.
Yeah. That's not how it works. It's not how it works.
And then on the flip side of that, like, okay, K-State. This is why I'm glad that the playoff is expanding, because conference champions should have the ability to try to win a national championship.
Absolutely.
Right? So Kansas State beat TCU. So,
right.
But TCU is now in the playoff
and could make a run. Yeah.
and could make a run.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make much sense. So I'm glad it's expanding, because as it sits now, as the standings sit now, when it expands, they would have a chance.
Yes. And that is the other thing that is new since the last time. They are expanding. It's official. They're going to 12 team in 2024, which would be great, because like we just talked about, a team like Kansas State that is very, very good, but has been streaky throughout the year, but they play hard. They're good in the trenches. Yeah, guess what defense they utilize a lot of the time? The 3-3-5. Yeah. And Adrian's going to be healthy. I don't know how the playoffs going to work. I think that with the 12 team, the first round is going to be when bowl games start, and then the second round will be when playoffs are now. But anyway, so yeah, I'm excited for the 12 team. I'm excited for these playoff games this year. And you know what? Real quick, we do have to touch on the fact that Donovan Raiola, retained. The fact that Donovan Raiola was retained as the offensive line coach, for Nebraska this year. What are your immediate thoughts with that?
My immediate thoughts are, you can't go into a place 1 year and change everything. It takes a couple years with coaching in general to get the guys you want in there, to coach them up how you want them to be coached up. And if you actually look at our offensive line play this year, it was better. It really was. It was better than it had been under Frost's entire tenure. It really had been. Yes, they had breakdowns. Yes, we had issues here and there. Remember, we were already down a starter before the season even started, right? Newelly got caught with PEDs before the season even started, and he was going to be a starter. Hands down, he was going to be. So you're already starting with one finger behind your back, basically. And, I think it's fine. I think if he keeps the progression going, I don't think anybody's going to think twice about it, really.
Yeah. My first reaction was, are you freaking kidding me? Out of all of the coaches that we wanted to be retained, I think we all would have agreed about a month ago, Raiola probably was last. Maybe Whipple, but probably Raiola.
One of them's being prosecuted. Bush is old.
Yes.
So,
that was the thing about Bush. That was the only thing that he didn't fulfill Matt Rule's criteria, was that he's older than the coaches that Matt Rule normally likes to hire. But supposedly he barely even got a conversation, and I'm just like, man, at least give him a conversation. Bill Bush is one of a kind. Anyway, so yeah, Raiola, I agree. I think we got better throughout the course of the year. But my concern with him is, I hope he can recruit. I hope he can go into someone's living room and recruit an entire family is basically what you have to do. And because my concern about it is because last year, he didn't really do that. We got 2 transfer portal additions, and neither of them were by the making of Raiola. One of them was actually a Mickey Joseph guy and Kevin Williams, and the other one, what was Hunter Anthony? He was not a Raiola get. So it is a little bit concerning to me on that front as far as recruiting. We'll see how it works. So far, actually, Raiola is coming through with a couple of connections. That Ben Scott guy that I was talking about from Arizona State, he came in for his official last week, and Raiola brought in Dominic. Donovan and Dominic. Dominic came in, and they recruited them together, which is interesting. Let's just put it that way. Interesting. But yeah, so Raiola retained. It is what it is. It is what it is. We'll see. A play has to come on the field. We all agree on that at this point. It doesn't. None of this matters. All this off-season stuff, none of it matters. As far as keeping up appearances, I do think that Matt Rule, as far as social media, is finding the perfect middle ground to operate from. Whereas someone like Lane Kiffin, they're a little bit social media obsessed, right? And maybe it's a bit of a liability at some points, even for your football program. And then someone like Scott Frost, where it's like, you look on his Twitter and it still says head coach of Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Yeah.
That's a man that does not touch his Twitter at all.
Yeah.
If it still says head coach of Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Yeah.
So he was a recluse, and Lane Kiffin is a bit of a maniac on Twitter. So I feel like Matt Rule's finding that sort of Goldilocks zone where he has a presence. He's telling you pretty much where he is every single day. But yeah, so I like Matt Rule so far. I wouldn't say I'm drinking the Kool-Aid fully 100%, but I like what I see. I'm encouraged.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's going to be it for us today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Again, we're only going to be probably doing maybe one of these a month. We're going to do a year-end review here in about a week or so.
Yep. That'll be a fun episode.
That'll be fun. So
BYOB.
Yeah, BYOB. And then so follow us at Twitter at @CHusker_corner and on Instagram Cornhusker Corner. But that's it. Once a month after this month. And
give us a like, give us a subscribe, comment, do all the stuff. We like interacting with you. So yeah. Here's to a great year. There's no place like this podcast.